Okay, Gurmagut Las Cancorla, and I welcome the opportunity on speaking on this motion in relation to the VAT rate and the hospitality sector. Minister, I do acknowledge, and this isn't a person that goes around blindfolded, I do acknowledge about the 4,000 scheme, but the reality of it is that in the hospitality sector, unfortunately, and you see it as well as I see it this morning in Dublin, it's, and I don't know the building, or I don't know the business, that there is businesses announcing their closure day by day in the sector, unfortunately. And if you look at the local papers, be it in Galway or be it in Mayo or wherever, in the small rural villages and in the larger towns, unfortunately, we are seeing the closure of those small businesses. They are finding it very hard to survive. And some might say, sure, look, there was only one or two or whatever working in it. Well, one or two in a small village in a rural area might be as important as 21 or 25 in a bigger town. And we are seeing this on a constant basis, week in, week out, unfortunately. And when you talk to the sector, there is deflation there at the moment, first of all, and I first of all want to commend them that yesterday, from all parts of the country, because bear in mind one thing, people don't jump in a car from Donegal or from Kerry or from any part of the country and drive to Dublin just for the sake of protesting, because business people are busy enough to be at home. And yesterday, those people, because of the frustration and in the situation they find themselves, came from all over the country to show their frustration for what they feel they are being left behind. And I want to be clear on one thing. I'm not talking about hotel beds. I'm not talking about that sector whatsoever. What I am talking about, the hospitality sector. And you can broaden that out to small SMEs, be it hairdressers and all of that, but especially the hospitality, the food sector, the restaurant sector is in real trouble. And there is enough of different problems. Obviously, you've always tried to get staff, and it's tough to get staff. And they have that to overcome. In fairness, during the COVID period, and I will say this, that the hospitality sector, and indeed other sectors, the government tried to come to to give them help. But there is a few things that's causing problems. Everybody knows at the time about the tax warehousing. And it's grand parking something down the by road, but someday again it has to come up onto the main road. And unfortunately, they weren't in a position, some of them, to be able to, come back from that, which is a loss. The cost of energy, and have a look at Ireland, the cost of energy in Ireland, and you can say, well, we give this and we give that and we give the other. The cost of energy in Ireland is one of the highest in Europe, if not the highest. So when you go to try and basically produce food or cook food in the restaurant sector, it's costing you more. And while no one, and in fairness to everybody in the hospitality sector that I have spoke to, no one begrudges someone getting a proper wage. But what they are saying to me is the minimum wage, obviously in the budget, is going up, and no one begrudges that, to be quite frank about it. But every other step of the way up along will be going up as well. And I spoke to a person, small SME, that has 50 employees. And the night of the budget, they actually text me. And they said, and I want to be clear on this, they says, we don't have any begrudging whatsoever of people getting more wages, because obviously ordinary people that are working, their costs are going up and up as well. But the problem for them is that this person had 50 employees, and they just gave me the figures that with the increase and with and the auto enrolment that is put down the road for, I think, into next September in the pensions, and with a rates revision that was done, they have to find 150,000 somewhere else. And that person doesn't know where that's going to come from. And if we listen to Anton from Europe over the last number of weeks, we saw Mario Draghi being very clear that we are getting basically anti-competitive. Well, if he says that about Europe, if he threw his eye over here to Ireland, I don't know what he'd say about us, for the simple reason, if you look at the rest of Europe, 70% of the countries in Europe has a lower VAT rate for that sector than what we have. And if you go to the rest of Europe, you will see very clearly that the cost of production, be it in electricity, be it in rents or leases, and the overall cost of producing something, or be it in a restaurant, or the cost of having a meal, is a way less. And we are going up and up, and we are losing the difference. We are losing a huge amount of those premises right around the country. And also, look, there's a few different things, headwinds that would have hit again the sector. If you look at Bord Fáilte or Tourism Ireland's report, the figures are bed space is available, and we are well aware that the government, for other reasons, and I'm not getting into that at the moment, for other reasons decided that they'd rent or lease or take hotel bed space where they were under pressure with in the line of immigration. But the problem was that some of those businesses in those towns wouldn't have the spend that would be coming from, we'll say, the yank coming from America or from different parts of Europe. You wouldn't have the same spend. And the other thing we need to do as a country is watch that we stay basically attractive for bringing in the different tourists. And, you know, at the moment we seem to hear a government stating very clearly that, well, look, we're going to give them this, and that's going to sort it. But while that's there, and I acknowledge that, we are losing small businesses, especially the restaurant sector, coffee shops, all that type of business, day in, day out. And I think the government, you know, some might say, well, the budget is gone now. Well, the budget is gone, but there's an election coming. These people live in areas right around this country. These people have gone to the bother of setting up a business, of employing people. And some of them may be doing it on their own. But the turnover at the moment and the closures is actually frightening. And it's like that the government has become tone deaf to what's going on in parts of the country. There may be some restaurants flourishing, but on the whole, there are an awful lot of them that are struggling. And, you know, people would say, well, there's a lot of people, I know one restaurant, and I spoke to the owner, and on the face of it, you'd say, God, there's a lot of people going into that, they must be doing well. I spoke to that owner, and they are contemplating about closure. And it would come as a bolt out of the blue. So the government need to make sure that in my opinion, they need to revisit this. The Restaurants Federation have spoke to you. There seemed to be a big build-up before the budget that this was going to be sorted. There was a lot of different speculation. The minister over it had actually agreed that it needed help. And unfortunately, it hasn't come. And ye as a government had enough of money to make sure that we keep this going. Because the other side of this, Minister, and this is the big problem, that the more jobs you lose in areas that aren't basically wouldn't have the industry of other parts of the country, the more jobs you lose in that, the more the inkling or the stats will tell you that you will end up with more social welfare being paid out. So if you don't give it in one hand and help the sector in one hand, you're going to end up giving it on the other hand. And while 100%, any of them you talk to, they believe that they have no problem with the likes of the minimum wage, but they are firm believers that if VAT is reduced, that it will, it's not that it's going to make them wealthy or anything, it will keep the door open rather than another light going off in rural Ireland. And that opportunity is yours as a government to be different if we had a situation where we were stuck for money or whatever. But at the moment, as a country, thankfully, that things are pretty good that way. But we seem to be concentrating that, sure, look it, we can nearly do without them now. That's nearly the attitude at the moment. But to build communities around Ireland, you cannot do without them. And we need to make sure that we give them the opportunity of survival. I would call on this government to not oppose this motion for the simple reason, I think that if you talk to anyone around the country, they would agree fully that this needs sorting out. These people need help. I would call on the government not to put an amendment in or call or vote against this motion because there is a lot of frustration out there that's not being listened to. And that's one thing that the sector seems to, they feel left behind, they feel neglected. And I think that, Minister, I would ask you to give the opportunity to those people to, first of all, talk to them. Second of all, I think you need to work on the VAT. And thirdly, I think we need a long-term plan in the viability of those places going forward, because you cannot keep lobbing different costs on top. They have seen, like our electricity costs, we're not tackling, if you go back to Mr. Draghi's statement, we're not tackling the sides of it that should be tackled in the line of costs and all of that for the sector. So I will leave it at that, Minister. I think Deputy Pringle, are you next? Deputy Pringle is to speak next. Thank you.